Simon.
Hi, everybody. We're about to begin in a moment. Thank you so much for being on time. हामी छिट्टो नै स्टार्ट गर्छौँ।
Okay, so we're just waiting until it hits 7, and then we'll start right at 7. Okay, so thank you guys for coming early. Thank you for joining us, and I hope this is going to be interesting.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're about to start shortly. Please get your water, teas, coffee. Make yourselves comfortable. We will begin in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, ready, eh?
One more minute.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being so patient with us this evening. My name is Priyanka Bastula, and I am the co-founder of Column Digital. We're so excited to have our first ever virtual event. Thank you for making the time this evening and joining us, right? म चाहिँ यहाँबाट निस्किहाल्छु. Before I go, I would want to let you know that we are recording this session. If you're comfortable, please turn your videos on. If not, that's completely okay. If you have any questions during the session, please write it in the chat. And then they will get to it at the end of the session, where there will also be a Q&A round. त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ please feel free to ask whatever questions that you may have. Make sure that you mute yourself so that the conversation flows freely. Thank you so much again for being here. And I would like to invite Bhrikuti Rai to join us, and I hand it over to you for me.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome, Bhrikuti.
Thank you, Pranaya.
Please asan ground water.
Dhanyavad, namaste.
I'm sorry we don't have a panas for you to light or
I'm
a
a bit
khada
disappointed.
to
I'm
put
really
around you.
disappointed.
But thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone who's here to listen to us talk today. You guys have been so great supporting us, reading us every week. So thank you very much. And in case you have friends or family who would like to read us and follow us, please make sure you share the newsletter and also Bozubazai with them. And now I would like to ask Miss Bhrikuti Rai, please give us a short introduction about yourself.
Maybe introduction already. Introduction
Wait.
Well, I mean introduction.
Give an introduction.
Okay. My name is Bhrikuti Rai. I'm a journalist and I'm the co-founder of Boju Bajai, a feminist podcast that I started with Itisha Giri in 2016. Since starting in 2016, Boju Bajai has tried different things, including dabbling in videos and doing reported pieces, working with different journalists, doing narrative stories. And before I started Boju Bajai, I used to work at Nepali Times, the same place I think Pranaya and I began our journalism journey at. त्यसपछि चाहिँ मैले साउथ एसिया चेकमा फ्याक्ट चेकरको रूपमा काम गरेँ. अनि after that I went to Columbia University to get a master's in investigative journalism. And after that, I worked in Kathmandu Post for a few years. During that time, I was also contributing to some international outlets that were interested in stories from Nepal, like BBC, Radiolab, LA Times. So I'd done some international reporting, multimedia stories. And and I also worked at Corrective. It's a non-profit newsroom, investigative newsroom out of Berlin for a semester. So it was fun working there. And then it's just been, then the pandemic happened and I don't know what we've been doing since then. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Bhrikuti. So as you can see, Bhrikuti is a very storied journalist. She has bylines everywhere. And I'm sure you've read her work. And if you haven't, please do Google. You can find a lot of her stories. They're all very interesting. So thank you for introducing yourself. Now, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Pranay. I write the newsletter every week. Before starting this newsletter, I used to work at the Record. And I started this newsletter as a newsletter for the Record. Unfortunately, the Record has gone on a very long hiatus. So I had to part ways with the Record and start my own thing. So this newsletter used to be called Off the Record, but now it's called Kalam Weekly. Before joining the Record, I used to work with Bhrikuti at the Kathmandu Post, where I was features editor. Before that, I was op-ed editor at the Kathmandu Post. And then before that, I used to work for Nepali Times. as just a reporter. That's where I started my journalism career. So I think Bhrikuti and I, we both have very similar pathways in journalism. We started at the same place. We eventually ended up working together. And it's been an interesting time for both of us. I think there was a lot that we learned, but there was also a lot that we maybe didn't like so much or were uncomfortable with, or led there were things that pushed us to go our own separate ways. So I'd like to ask Brigidi, so what was your experience like working for mainstream media?
I think and we were talking about this earlier also, and I think Pranay and I, we are among the few fortunate young reporters who had the opportunity to start at where we did, like Nepali Times, where we were able to actually build a solid foundation for our journalism career, understanding how to report properly. College, more. I had a degree in media studies in from KU, तर हामीले खासै journalism मैले गरेको थिइनँ, like कलेजमा पनि खासै त्यस्तो पढाइ त्यसरी जर्नलिजम मै फोकस भएर भएको थिएन. So a lot of everything I learned, introduction to investigative journalism, just how to like distinguish a press release from news, how to not quote these like very jargon heavy Bikase reports, like I all learned from my like boss Kunda Dikshit there, and all the editors there, Trishna Rana. So I think I had like a solid start, I would say, which sort of gave me I could see myself doing this for a while when I started out, which I don't think is always the case.
Yeah.
And I think at Kathmandu Post also, I think we had a very good team.
Yeah.
Pranay was my editor. We worked with Anup and Sanjeev Dai and Chiring, and like we had a great team. So we got to do a lot of interesting investigative pieces. So was mute the whole time? 30 seconds. Okay, sorry. Sorry, mute boy. Sorry. Sorry, I'll again repeat my interesting story about why I left mainstream media. The first time was already sorry, the glitch boy. 2 minute. Okay, just to lag. Okay. Anyway, okay. So where was I?
So you had
Oh yeah. So I had to come back, and so but after a while चाहिँ अब journalism पत्रकारिता गरेको 8-9 वर्ष भइसक्यो as a reporter. What after this भन्ने खालके I was at that point in my career, and fortunately we'd been doing Boju Bajai for about 2 or 3 years, and then we saw an opportunity for Boju Bajai to grow. And I decided, okay, then maybe I just want to pursue this, because I think 2018-19 was also a time when a lot of journalists नेपालमा पनि अनि इन्डियामा साउथ एसियामा भनौँ अनि अब अफकोर्स वेस्टर्न कन्ट्रिजमा त भइ नै रहेको थियो, where they were breaking away from the more mainstream media and starting out their own ventures, small, some of them were doing fine, some of them, like there was this view around that this whole time around that around those years right before the pandemic hit. So I think we had a good opportunity, and I also did not see myself like thriving in a very large media institutions where there are a lot of things that we could not have we didn't have a say over. I wouldn't say it was like the most structured place. There weren't a lot of processes in place. So things, it's the ठुलो media house ma काम गर्दा पनि like एकदम ad hoc basis मा धेरै कुरा हुँदाखेरि, and also there were so much interesting things that was happening in journalism. As a journalist, as a reader, I thought I would read and I would want to do those things. But as a reporter, like म काठमाडौँ पोस्टमा काम गर्दा पनि there was limited opportunities to really execute certain things I wanted to do. So Boju Bajai became the outlet to do those kind of things, like we were just talking, like reporting on media, things like that. So So we received some support, and then we started our company, and that's just what we've been doing since then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I agree. My experience also very similar, I mean, mainstream media, भन्ने बित्तिकै, it's not like, everything is bad or everything is terrible. त्यस्तो पनि होइन. Obviously, there are a lot of great reporters, a lot of great editors who are doing good work. And I mean, we both learned a lot
Yeah.
in mainstream media. Our editors were great, our colleagues were great. We learned basically, the basics of how to do journalism, what is important, how to write for an audience. All of those things, they don't come naturally. You have to learn them and you have to be taught. You need some kind of mentorship there to teach you how to do these things. And we both started very young, right out of
After college, yeah.
out of college. So we were very young. We just wanted to write. We didn't really know how to do it, but we were taught. We had good mentors, and somehow, yeah, like Bhrikuti said, we're lucky.
Yeah.
We're one of the, I think, very lucky few that got the kind of support that we needed. I'm not sure how applicable that is to everyone. I don't think everyone gets the kind of support that we did. And I think over the years, it has kind of maybe become harder for young journalists to kind of get into mainstream media and find that kind of guidance and support that leads them to develop, an interest in journalism, in telling stories and learning how to do it well.
Yeah.
Because these days, we have the internet, we have social media, you can start a blog, you can write a newsletter, you can do anything on your own. But to really learn how to tell stories, that's also, it's something that is learned, that you need people around you to kind of figure out how to do.
Yeah, and also I think हामीले आफ्नो start गरे पनि I think हाम्रो the recognition and our past work affiliation with larger known brands like Nepali Times, Kathmandu Post, Kantipur really helped us build our brand also later on, which for which we are thankful. And the kind of and also I think journalist नेपालमा journalist हुँदा र journalism pursue गर्छु भन्ने आफूमा त्यो दृढता छ भने चाहिँ you have to search for opportunities on your own. There's only so much that you can are offered, right? Like the newsrooms that Nepalma that they are here. A lot of journalists, and I see that especially in younger journalists these days, they are seeking out opportunities, whether it's looking for reporting fellowship or trainings, because we don't have that kind of capacity building. Interest or capabilities in-house. So a lot of journalists are doing that, including me. I started doing that a few years into my work at Nepali Times, and that has really helped me really expand my horizons and see that there is a possibility to keep doing, pursuing journalism. So
so that was the good. But now let's talk about the bad.
That's what we're here for.
So what made you decide to leave, mainstream media and start your own thing?
मैले त अघि पनि भनिसकेको छु मेरो लागि चाहिँ काठमाडौँ पोस्टमा काम गर्दा चाहिँ फर्स्ट टाइम मैले त्यत्रो ठुलो सेटअप न्युज रुममा काम गरेको त्योभन्दा अगाडि एकदम सानो नेपाली टाइम्स और साउथ एसिया चेकमा गर्दै थियो मच स्मलर टिम. सो एक त त्यस्तो ठुलो अर्गनाइजेसनमा कहिले काम गरेको थिइनँ. अनि because of the way such large organizations work, you don't really see career progression beyond, what after reporting, what happens to my career after I report, after I, do this reporting, same kind of, investigative journalism, even award-winning investigative journalism, where is it going to take me after a while? And like I said earlier, I really wanted to, experiment and try with all of these kinds of whatever was available to us, because the barrier to entry was so low. I think that also helped Boju Boje a lot, low production cost and, just audio, just, there was all these platforms available for free where we could, reach out to more people. And I just saw an opportunity and I jumped at it. Also,
But you also started at a time when there weren't many podcasts, no?
Yeah, we
You
actually
were
had.
quite early to the game.
Now I'm bojo bojo. I'm bojo bhayisakyo yaar podcast garda. And where we call ourselves the OG grannies of podcasting in Nepal. Yeah, we started in 2016 where we had to explain to people what podcast is.
Yeah.
Right now, people equate it to just like two people like this talking on camera and the interview talking
With a mic.
yeah, with a mic and headphones. You don't need those headphones, guys, to start a podcast. Okay, यति साह्रो मैले कहिले युज गर्दैनौँ फोटो खिच्न मात्रै चलाउँछौँ anyway so podcast हामीले सुरु गर्दाखेरि we actually had to make videos to tell people or like like this is how you download I used to and wherever I met people I just like can you give me your phone yeah please subscribe गर्नु होला भन्दै I still do that so it was around that time when we started and since then I think we've like like sort of try to diversify our offerings and gone beyond just two-person talking like interview style भन्दा पनि reported pieces पनि गर्ने गराएछौँ तर mostly I think it was just like like trying to see what the possibilities were if I did something on my own because all reporting त त्यस्तै नै हो तर to like to actually start something and like do things on my own terms was something I never thought I would be able to do. That I would be like, I don't know, yeah, to have to worry about things beyond reporting. So I think that was what really got me into this. Yeah.
Exactly. I know. It's similar reasons, right? Why we both started our own paths in journalism, what we're doing today. Same thing with me. I started this newsletter as a way to kind of explore what else can we do as journalists. What else can we offer beyond just reporting? Because when I used to work for Kantipur and Kathmandu Post, it's a media house with a lot of deep pockets, right? It's a corporate media house. They have a lot of money, but somehow I never saw them experimenting or trying new things, even though they could afford to do it. They were quite late to the game, when it comes to digital media, online media. eKantipur started quite late when, by the time like Setopati, online cover had already come up, already taken a chunk of the market. That's when they start. So I think there was a kind of that's also the drawback of a traditional mainstream media house is that they're so used to doing things that how they've always been doing it that they're unwilling to kind of take a risk and say, okay, how can we do things differently? So that's why I kind of wanted to do that at the Record, even though the Record was also doing the similar kinds of it was mostly reporting, and although the angles, the stories were different, it was mainly reporting and opinion pieces, which is what newspapers do. But I wanted, okay, let's try a newsletter. And this was at a time when, it was pandemic time and the newsletters had also just like exploded.
Yeah.
At that time, like everyone was writing a newsletter.
Everybody had a podcast, they still have.
No, journalists were like, they're quitting their jobs to start a newsletter.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it now. But I thought, okay, Nepal, man, there isn't really a newsletter. So I thought, okay, well, I'll start it.
Nepal number one newsletter column.
So yeah, I just thought I'd start it, and then I really did not expect that it would turn into something like this.
Yeah.
I never thought that I could take that newsletter and actually start a company or a media outlet on its own just based around this newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm सबैजना newsletter त पढिरहेको तर नेपालको चाहिँ नेपाल specific थिएन and one of the reasons I know I'm like Pranaya newsletter is doing so well is because Pranaya recommends Boju Bajai newsletter which we stopped writing I think a few months ago. So every time Kalam Friday newsletter drop, they're like somebody from who reads Kalam Weekly has subscribed. I'm like, oh my god, Itisha, the newsletter that shows that there is appetite for news, the kind of people always feel good when they learn something. It's just that अहिले हाम्रोमा चाहिँ एकदमै कि त जो हामी पनि काठमाडौँ पोस्टमा काम गर्दा हुन्थ्यो नि तिमीले एडिट गर्दा तिमीले रिपोर्टर्सहरूलाई सिकाउँथ्यौ एउटा समाचार छ यु डोन्ट अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड केही बुझ्दैन कि
Yeah.
के चाहिँ भन्न खोजेको के भएको छ अब त्यो अहिले अब अफकोर्स विल गेट इन्टु द्याट there is all these like pages like Routine of Nepal Bond, no next question. They have those headlines. Some of them explain, some of them don't. So context to बुझ्न मन लाग्छ नि यो फलानो यस्तो भयो, but what happened beyond that and how does that really impact us भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ. And I think Pranay's newsletter is able to do that. Column does that week after week. You know, you come back and like, oh, I missed this news cycle because of course news cycle is so difficult to keep up with. But having something like the newsletter is really helping us, you know, like understand like what really happened last week and what the news were and what it meant and के हो context भन्ने कुरा बुझाउने.
And in a way, I think what the two of us do is kind of similar because we really do want to locate stories within a wider context,
Yeah.
right? Like we want to explain like यो कहाँबाट भयो त कहाँबाट आयो and what does it mean? So we don't want to just tell you what happened. We're going to tell you why it happened,
Yeah.
how it happened, what does it mean?
Yeah.
And these days, man, this is more important than ever,
Yeah.
I think. It's so easy to just like have a headline and then it goes viral and then you don't understand. You just read the headline and that's the only thing you know. तर के हो त यो कहाँबाट आयो भन्ने कुरा त no one explains it to you.
अनि त्यो अर्को कुरा पनि किन गर्न खोजेको जस्तो अफकोर्स हामीले जुन न्युज रुम्सहरुमा काम गर्यौं त्यहाँ हामीले गर्न खोजेको रिपोर्टिङहरु त गर्न पायौं. सो आई रिपोर्टेड अबाउट लाइक ह्युमन राइट्स अब्युज, इन्भाइरोमेन्टल इश्यूज, अल द्याट. तर मलाई चाहिँ बिकज एज अ जर्नलिस्ट, एज अ स्टुडेन्ट अफ जर्नलिजम मलाई चाहिँ पहिलादेखि नै I've always been like voracious reader of media reporting. You know, के भइरहेछ, new practices,
Yeah.
you know, how did certain news outlets report on these issues, what can we learn from that. नेपालमा चाहिँ एकदम मिस भएको चाहिँ media reporting हो के. सो मलाई चाहिँ त्यो मिस हुन्थ्यो अनि मैले चाहिँ बोजू-बोजेको माध्यमबाट चाहिँ हामीले गर्थ्यौं. जस्तो हाम्रो चाहिँ बिकज हामीले सबै कुरामा चाहिँ जेन्डर लेन्सबाट हेर्ने भएकोले गर्दा पोलिटिक्स, न्यूज, you know, like culture. So just कसरी न्यूज मिडियाले रिपोर्ट गर्छ लाइक women athletes versus you know like male athletes or त्यो खालके कस्तो खालके narrative हुन्छ, कस्तो खालके लेन्सले चाहिँ उनीहरूले रिपोर्टिङ गर्छ अबाउट सेक्सुअल भाइलेन्स, अबाउट यु नो दोज काइन्ड अफ थिङ्स. सो वी डिड लाइक रेकर्डसँगै त्यति बेला हामीले कोलाबोरेसन गराएको थियौँ. हाउ डज नेपाली मिडिया रिपोर्ट अन यु नो लाइक रेप होइन त्यस्तो खालके इस्युजहरू. सो फर मी द्याट वाज अल्सो समथिङ आई वान्टेड टु रिपोर्ट अन, जुन नेपाली मिडियामा अहिले पनि अनफर्चुनेटली कि त एकदमै गुणगान गाउँछ कि त इट्स अबाउट लाइक there's nothing written about and there's no like के भन्छ sourcing each other or acknowledging that you know this.
No, there is a unofficial policy of you don't talk about me, I don't talk about you.
Yeah.
So no matter what happens, there can be a major scandal happening at another newspaper, but no one else will write about it because they're afraid that one day something happens in my organization and they're going to write about it.
Yeah.
So it's a unofficial policy. Don't write about the media.
But then I think त्यसको impact चाहिँ अब जस्तो हामीलाई जस्तो when we are starting out, जस्तो हामीले बोजू बोजू 2020 मा formally 2019 मा you know like when we you know like became a company and wanted to do things, अब कहाँ चाहिँ गएर कोसँग चाहिँ सल्लाह सुझाव दिने हैन. Media startup छ, how do we do, like of course we knew there was सेतोपाती and online खबर and all that, but they never really talked about how they got off the ground, what is their strategy, how do they talk about building a team, how are they going to. नेपालमा चाहिँ ओ हामी डिजिटल मिडिया हो तर हामी चाहिँ मेन स्ट्रिम भन्दा फरक छौं भन्छौं, तर कुन हिसाबले फरक हुनुहुन्छ तपाई हैन. रिपोर्टिङ त्यही छ, तपाईको माध्यम फरक होला. ओके यु आर अनलाइन, यु अपडेट एभ्री 1 hour, you don't have to wait until it goes to press to report to distribute. तर beyond that नेपालमा चाहिँ छैन, कन्भर्सेसनै छैन के यो कसरी हाउ क्यान वी डु डिफरेन्टली हैन. फन्डिङको कुरा अथवा हाउ टु इन्गेज विथ द अडियन्स, समथिङ द्याट बोजू बोजेमा त फ्रम द भेरी स्टार्ट आई थिङ्क द्याट इज रियली हेल्प अस बिल्ड लाइक अ सानो भए पनि लाइक अ भेरी लोयल you know like you know like followers and audience who've been with us since 2016, and now that we're on season break, they're like I think 5 people have sent us a message saying where are you guys, we miss you. So it's when I was working at Kathmandu Post, I did not get that kind of recognition. Although people like maybe might have shared our work, but they did not have that connection to me as reporter like Bhrikuti who writes for this. But with Boju Boju, that has really changed, and I think that is because Hamro approach to how we look at our relationship with the audience, building a community, which I like. If somebody asks me Boju Boju ko audience ko bhandakari ma bhanna sakchu at this point, because we've been doing this for a while and engaging with them. We've used like social media, Instagram, Twitter, to make sure we are always talking to them. and of course हाम्रो सानो छ and तर we know like our audience, so कोही बेला
Exactly.
joke पनि हुन्छ कि I know I can't talk to certain people because I know they will not agree with what some of the things we say or the way we do it. So I think to me that is success, like to identify who my audience is and who I can convert maybe as a Boji Boji listener or reader. That is a challenge, I think, going forward.
So this, the podcast and this newsletter, I think it's really taught us the value of building an audience.
Yeah.
Because when we worked at mainstream newspapers, there was already an audience that we expect, right? So Kantipur will say, oh yeah, 1 lakh people read our newspaper every day. That's our audience. But we don't know who they are. We don't know what they want.
Yeah.
But with more smaller, these kind of new media things that we're doing, we can actually directly reach out to you, which I did like, a few weeks ago with that survey. And I got such great feedback from all of you. And it really helps me because now I know, okay, here are the kind of things that maybe I should focus on. Maybe this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for from me as an independent journalist or as an independent media outlet. So I think it's about us also learning what you want.
त्यो सर्वेमा चाहिँ बिकज हामी अरू कुरा गर्दै थियौँ नेपालमा चाहिँ त्यो छैन नि त कन्भर्सेसन, इट्स लाइक अलमोस्ट लाइक वान वे कन्भर्सेसन भइरहेको हुन्छ। हामीले दिन्छ वी जस्ट पढ्नु भयो पढ, नपढ्ने भयो नपढ्ने, पत्रिकामा मसला हालेर just chuck it away, no? So तर what was one of the biggest like learnings or surprises that came out of your recent survey, audience survey?
So I was just very surprised at how many people filled out the survey. That to me, that itself was a big surprise because I didn't think, because I know, okay, you read the newsletter, but to fill out a survey takes time, and not everyone wants to fill out a survey. So just the amount of people who decided that this is worth my time putting it in, and so much of it was just so like overwhelmingly positive. Just you saying, oh yeah, I value this so much. That gives me so much energy. And like makes you feel like, okay, yeah, I'm doing something worthwhile. And to hear that and to get this kind of like raw feedback, and there were a lot of comments saying like how I could improve too. A lot of you said you want more reporting, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And that was in the plans, right? I had been planning to do more reporting, but now since so many of you said that you'd like to see more of that, it gives me an imperative to actually go for it and now start making it happen, which is already happening and you'll see it soon.
म पनि यो पिच पठाउँछु है एडिटर सरलाई
Always. So yeah, so those are the good things, right? But going independent also, I mean, comes with its own challenges. Like the biggest one, I guess, for both of us would be money. Right? At the end of the day, we want to be paid well and to pay people well. Mainstream media, a big reason why so many people leave is because they don't get paid well. Right? And we all know this. So many of our colleagues now work as press officers and communication officers at the UN or some, at an embassy or something. Why do they do that? It's not that they don't want to do journalism or they don't want to tell stories. It's just that it's very hard to make a living as a journalist. It's very hard to have, a kid, send them to a good school, have a decent standard of living as a journalist. So that's why they choose to do that. And as an independent media outlet, it's even more difficult because now we can barely afford to keep ourselves up.
But at least we are transparent about it. We are at least like we're not holding people's salaries or anything.
But yes, please.
So because हाम्रोमा चाहिँ त्यो media reporting को कुरा and overall हाम्रो नेपाली समाज यस्तो छ जहाँ चाहिँ we don't talk about money, right? Like we're all working like thousands of people leave the country every day in search of better opportunities, but we just don't like talking about money. And it applies to all, I think, fields, including media, journalism, where it's like, what do you mean you want to raise, like, that kind of situation where it's also, I think, हामीले यो challenges कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we were just talking about yes, we learned a lot of things about how to be a good reporter, things like that. तर यो management aspect त कहिले पनि हामीले देखेनौँ अनि मेरो आफ्नो एक्सपिरियन्समा पनि for us non-journalistic roles in a media newsroom, sorry, in a newsroom was only the marketing people, right?
Yeah.
Ad lagi land. Beyond that, how does a company, like a large company, function?
Exactly.
What are the HR policies?
Mhm.
How do you do media management? Unfortunately, it's not the most well managed places where we worked, despite all the positives that we talked about. So for us, it was like. It was like a very steep learning curve
Mhm.
about how do we put in places systems to make sure that, okay, if I'm going on a leave for like a week or 2 weeks, how do we make sure that editor calendar चाहिँ follow गरिन्छ? We are making sure that we have reporters that we've commissioned stories to.
Yeah.
How do we work with them? How do we chase stories? How do we like commission stories or case of procedure payment, especially how do we do that?
Yeah, exactly.
How do we ensure the reporters are safe? How do we ensure that they have the reporters that who work with us have a policy, like have some kind of protocol or
protection.
guideline about
Mhm.
protection, also the protection of the sources. Like
Yeah.
when we did stories about like people in I think we did a story about uh, 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 transgender women in Kathmandu. Then how do we make sure that we are protecting their identities,
Yeah.
things like that. So I think some of the things that we did not get to do at the newsrooms where we worked in, I think after independently got the we
Yeah.
want to put in place, and that's been like a challenge and a learning opportunity also, I would say.
Definitely. And just the basic fact of like running a business, right?
Yeah.
We're both journalists. We
Yeah.
didn't study business.
नम्बरदेखि मेरो टाउको दुख्छ अहिले पनि I don't
Yeah,
understand
even
Excel
now.
sheets, nothing.
त्यही त
यति साह्रो
केही पनि
दुख्छ.
आउँदैन. I don't know. I don't know how to run a business.
Don't say that out loud.
We also didn't know. Like, I mean, now I'm learning,
Yeah.
right? Like, I've been forced to learn. कसरी business plan लेख्ने, कसरी like how do you, how do you find revenue sources? How do you diversify your revenue sources? How do you try to bring more money in so that you also have some money, as a salary? But how do you pay other people? How do you make enough money to pay your reporters well? All of these things that we had never thought about, we did need to think about. Now we have to think about, and we really need to like figure out a way to do it in a way where we're also not exploiting anyone, because we don't want to do that, right? We're journalists. We know how badly other journalists get paid, so we don't want to pay people the way we are getting paid. We have to obviously pay them well.
Yeah.
But to pay them well, we need to make money.
So it's gonna take time. But it's so nice that it's so motivating to see, encouraging to see people like have paid subscribers. You guys,
Yeah, exactly.
You reached your goal of over 100 subscribers. Congratulations.
Thanks to all of you.
Yeah. And Boju Boje, we are on Patreon. You can support us on patreon.com/Boju So to see people like that's the kind of genuine support and encouragement that I think having a small but like a dedicated audience it just keeps motivating you to do your work. But yeah, I think we've talked a lot about journalism and journalists. हामी त्यही जर्नलिस्टहरु त्यसमा हामी अल्झिन्छौँ कि आफ्नो मात्रै कुरा गर्छौँ, आफूसँग मात्रै कुरा गर्छौँ है. जर्नलिस्टहरुको नन जर्नलिस्ट साथी हुँदैन भनेर म भन्दै थिएँ प्रणयलाई है. तर because now you're sort of like working beyond reporting, or now you think about audience building, a community, like since you've been doing this on your own with Priyanka now, what have you learned about what the audience, like अहिलेको हाम्रो जो audience छ उनीहरूको, like where are they getting the news from, what are they interested in, how do you look at the shifting, it's already shifted actually, the news consumption, media consumption, how do you place column in all of that?
Yeah, so I think these days less people are reading the news, right? Like it's not just the newspaper, but even online, like digital news artists like online Khabar Setapad, or like the thousands of other ones that exist out there. त्यो पनि धेरै कम हुँदै गइरहेछ. Most people are still getting the news from either social media or these pages like Routine of Nepal, So I think the media market or like the audience has become very fragmented, and it's become kind of like community. You share your news with each other, and it's less finding going to a newspaper and getting objective news,
Yeah.
because that I think is kind of dead, and it's
Mm.
being killed every single day by by people like for instance like Elon Musk or Donald Trump, who comes and says, oh, you're all fake news.
Yeah. And
Or
also
Ravi Lani in Nepal, right?
yeah.
He's
Who I think just like एउटा भन्यो समाचार
yes, please.
like okay, this is like completely I'm going completely off track तर रवि लाइन थानेको समाचार हेर्दा उसलाई यहाँबाट उसको आफ्नो टुर डेट सो Bartika is coming up with her song सजन राज भइदिएको टुर डेट्स and then I'm seeing like रवि लाइन थानेको also dates is like date and place उनीहरू पोखरा लग्यो उ पनि त्यही लग्यो like it's Nepal tour so anyway so Ravi Lam Thaneको त्यहाँ हो तर also we have to talk about how the platforms because now we are so reliant on these big platforms our audience we've built an audience on Instagram so when they change certain things because your media consumption habit यतिकै change भयो हैन so your tech platforms को पनि त एउटा rule छ हैन so like when they don't promote news because they think it'd be like not engaging enough they want something like where people comment more or get angry or they don't want to political things which means news that like journalists work so hard to work on something and then to downgrade so that's not in our control so that is also another challenge for especially smaller outlets like ours when we have to pay to make sure that our work gains visibility so I think that is also another challenge I think yeah.
Well, I mean, which is why newsletters are great because it comes directly to your email. And I think like both of us, what we've realized is that media is changing so fast that it's becoming kind of the focus has now shifted, right? Like in previously, you'd have the news, people would just read it, whatever it is. These days, it's not about what we provide, but what you want. What do you want? And if you're not reading us, there's no point in putting something out that no one is going to read.
And also I think हामीमा र mainstream media मा फरक चाहिँ के पनि छ भने we are actually trying our for at least at Boju Bojai we want to be where our audience is like we do not dismiss platforms just because okay there are silly videos out there or we need to do silly videos which we do quite a lot actually I mean news it is and it's sad that people think oh now I've seen this 30 seconds of TikTok where I'm making fun of or like doing like a funny update on the Bhutanese refugee wala त्यति बेला भइरहेको थियो नि they're like oh now I know I was like no you need to go back and read a little bit or like I wish we had the like the resources to do that which we don't have at the moment or that shows that people are willing to engage with news or current affairs but I think we also need to make that balance where we know that this is what our audience want not just something that we would like to report on it but we would like to report on it because we think this would resonate with our audience हैन जस्तो अब शेयर बजारको कुरा गर्छ यसको यति नेप्से सूचना यति बढ्यो अंक तर how does that affect the regular
what does that mean for me that's what most people want from the news is that okay this has happened great but what does that mean for me how does it affect my life and what like how can I understand this issue better so that I am a more informed person
so what other outlets you think are doing this kind of job where when you are a reader you read something you're like oh this is exactly what I was looking for or like oh this is something that you go to like you खोजी खोजी पढ्ने काम अथवा खोजी खोजी हेर्ने काम चाहिँ कसले गरिरहेछ जस्तो लाग्छ तिमीलाई चाहिँ अहिले भनौँ नेपालमा नेपाल बाहिर
नेपालमा I think some mainstream media I don't dismiss right like I'm not going to say oh Bhara bhai and then stop reading because that's not how the media functions. There are people who always do good reporting wherever they are on online hosts वा कान्तिपुरमा होस् वा नागरिकमा होस् वा जहाँ होस् they do good work and that's so individual reporters who write well who do good reporting they're always worth following no matter where they are and there are outlets like recent people who come up like Ukalo right they're trying new things I don't know how sustainable it is or how well they're going to do but at least they're trying right so that I have to give kudos to them because they've started podcasts Their podcasts are not just two people talking. The podcasts are about interesting things that audiences might want to listen to. So I think that's the kind of stuff that more, our traditional media houses should try. Let's look at different ways to deliver our content.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
And also, I think reporting on internet,
Exactly.
internet
Yes.
culture, I'm like extremely online, too much online to mine.
So
के भइरहेछ?
tell our audience about your favorite.
Oh.
uh,
मलाई प्रणयलाई भन्दै थिएँ, I really like किनभने म चाहिँ के गर्छु भने as a journalist I always like see how my friends and my family what does their social media news feed, like their social media feed look like. My friend, whenever I go meet my friends, I'm like, can I check your phone and see what they, and they do not, of course उनीहरूको त एकदम फरक हुन्छ, but they also are sharing news with me. So things like इन्डियामा छ लल्लन टप भन्ने हैन, which is amazing because they really are where the audience are, because something happens, because the way internet sort of like works is like something happens and somebody has a comment on it, so just this हुन्छ नि त. अनि उनीहरूले चाहिँ they add some context to it and this happened, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, what Rahul Gandhi said or what Modi said. It's about like, could be like a very influential personality on the internet, which there are quite a lot and we all follow, and people are interested in their lives, and you have to like meet your audience there, and like that's the only way they will recognize you. And then when you later report on, let's say, elections ko barema, then they're like, okay, I've been following this for a while, I should, when they actually need information to make decisions, they will come to you, right?
Yeah.
So I think as a news outlet, as a media company, we should always be thinking about that. The trust credibility भन्ने कुरा त्यसरी बिस्तारै build हुँदै जाने हो नि त, where you are like not just thinking like, oh, यो मात्रै गर्छु, breaking news मात्रै होइन. What are people reading about, what are people watching, like Pranaya does a great job, like book reviews, movie reviews, media को बारेमा पनि कुरा गर्ने जस्तो कुरा हुन्छ. ललन टप अर्को चाहिँ मलाई, I am like Taylor Lawrence को biggest fan in Nepal. She recently started her own newsletter, User Mag. She left Washington Post. So I think like there needs to be like a Taylor Lawrence reporter everywhere, I think, like who reports on the internet, does not care. Like I would love to report on like some of the biggest internet personalities of Nepal. Like I've been trying to do a profile on Sisan Bania for a while, भन्नु पर्ला है. So like, because तिमीले त्यो राख्यो भने people will read, because like he's an example, like he's so well known, but why isn't the mainstream media writing about such an influential person who's like, it's just an example, but there's so many others that we probably might not know, but he's big in some certain communities. So I think we need to really news judgment, what is newsworthy भन्ने कुरा पनि change गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ.
Yeah, and I think the days of the internet or social media not being considered news are long gone. And because social media is basically deciding now who we elect. We have a mayor who was basically elected by social media.
Yeah, he did not come to I think that's a recent example छ हैन. So the gatekeepers, अब त्यो mainstream media gatekeepers हो भन्ने कुरा त अब बिस्तारै अब त्यो त अब त्यो त्यही भयो हैन. अनि अहिले हामी एकदम प्रेजेन्ट र पास्टको मात्रै कुरा गरिरहेछौँ. So Pranay, now you are a media entrepreneur, so what does Kalam's future look like? Immediate future, what are your plans?
So immediate future, yes, more of these events. That's what we want to do, because we want to reach out to you. We want to have people come to us, speak to us, and actually know who we are. I don't know if this is the first time you've seen my face. But here I am. And I would like to do more of this, so that, like, I want to talk to you. I want you to come up to me and tell me, hey, that was good or that was bad. I disagree with that. I don't like it. Just tell me that. It helps me. And it doesn't mean I'm going to cater to you always, but we'll also, I'll figure out a way to balance it. And in the future, doing more reporting, and going back into, really the basics of journalism is good reporting, telling stories, bringing out stories that other people might not tell. That's what we want to do in the future. What's in the future for both of us?
Oh my God, yes, I think हाम्रो पनि is beyond, I think, what we've learned from the last 4 years. is that producing content like journalistic work that for me, for us at Bojiboj, it's really also important to think about the sustainability, the nature of our like outlet, like how do we, because we don't have those huge numbers to bring in ads, the kind of the ads that really run big companies. We don't have those kind of numbers. So then what do we do with this very dedicated but small community of listeners or readers? How do we engage with them? How do we make sure, like, we are trying to, we've been trying to do this how do we do reader supported work? How do we collaborate with like-minded organizations like Kalam and others to work together, to come together, to we have similar mission, values. How can we come together and work together? So and mostly diversifying our offerings and to really meet our audience where they are, and most importantly, like, have a lot of fun while doing it, because we are so much fun what to do, right? I think we really enjoy doing what we do, so so that's what we hope we can continue doing. अब हामी लाग्छौँ.
So I think that's enough of us talking.
Yeah. Hakyo.
So please,
अब
like,
question को छ है. There's questions for you there, Pranay, that Pranay
Okay.
is going to.
hi,
I'm going to ask Pranay first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
so the
म कुनलाई सोध्छु?
तिमी सोध्ने
म
पहिला?
सोध्छु. म सोध्छु. Okay.
okay, yes.
Okay, this question is from Priyanka Posne. Thank you, Priyanka. As an avid reader of Kalam Weekly, I eagerly anticipate the Friday newsletter. I enjoy every part of it, especially the deep dive. My question for Pranay is, as a writer, what kind of stories do you enjoy writing the most?
Oh, no.
uh,
I don't know. Actually, I enjoy writing everything, but I mean, I used to enjoy writing fiction, but that is long dead now.
It's the novel.
But when for the newsletter, I think writing about culture, really, that's like my thing, because I like culture. I like art. I like books. I like movies. I like what is happening around us. Because I think we spend so much time just looking at politics, that we kind of forget that there is, really vibrant culture that is around us, and that many interesting things are happening. So we kind of trying to ignore all of that and just look at, oh no, Oli went here and did this. Oh, Prachanda went here and did this.
Can someone I'm too unserious, sorry. Can I just say कि
Please.
Pranay has gotten so good at all these prompts. Pranay को त्यो pictures जुन आउँछ नि, what do you use, ChatGPT or
कहिले के
Pranay को यस्तो दामी हुन्छ कि अब stock image, अब छोडे Pranay को stock image को जमाना. Pranay is getting so good at giving prompts to AI. I love it.
Yeah, so of course, I also write about politics a lot, because that's usually what happens, and that's what most people want explained to them.
Yeah.
I know, because Nepali politics is just so complicated that if someone is not sitting you down and telling you, okay, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, you're gonna get lost.
Yeah.
I get lost all the time. I have to really sit down and figure out, okay, yo bela yo bhako थियो, and then yo bhako थियो. So it needs to be done. And I enjoy that too. But I really enjoy art and culture. That's just like my thing. I love culture.
Okay.
Internet culture.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay, अरू question पनि सोधिहाल्छु है.
अरू question भयो नि? मेरो पाली है.
Okay, तिमी सोध.
And is it related?
Yeah, it's for
Okay.
you. Eloisa. Okay. Do you see a role for yourself in mentoring and supporting young journalists as you were supported in bigger media houses?
Oh, yeah.
What would it look like?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. This is one of my biggest things. So while I was at Kathmandu Post also, I tried very hard to help and support young journalists. While I was features editor, I worked with a lot of very young journalists who were just starting out. And that was my thing. I really wanted, because, we can't just like sit here and say, oh, I have worked in journalism for 20 years and that's my contribution. No, my contribution has to be someone else who is younger and who wants to get into journalism because they learned something from me. That's what I would like to happen. And while I used to teach at Kathmandu University also, and that's when I really realized that, not a lot of young people are interested in journalism.
Mm.
And it's not because they don't want to tell stories, but they are just so intimidated, or they don't know how to like break into it. And they have no one to guide them and no one to tell them, okay, here's how you do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we really, really lack. No?
Yeah, and just to add to that, because हामीले सुरु गर्दाखेरि 10 years ago थिएन नि त एउटा all these groups of like professional journalist groups, it just seems so inaccessible to us, especially when you're a young woman joining this profession. So अहिले चाहिँ a few years ago, me and a couple of my other friends, journalist friends, Pawan, Chiring, we all got together and we started a small WhatsApp group. So this is for all women journalists. So it's essentially like an informal like group for women journalists to just share contacts and
Yeah,
share
great.
opportunities, connect with each other, and older journalists tell that they are so happy to see something like this, because back then even getting someone's contact, it would be such a hassle, like usko number chaina, yo chaina.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to do that in our own like small limited capacity. So yeah.
So,
Of
no, that's great. I think we need to have
Yeah.
really more of that.
Yeah.
And especially in like legacy newsrooms,
Yeah.
because that's where, a lot of experienced journalists are. And
Yeah.
if they don't guide the next generation, who's going to do it, right?
Mm.
So that said, if anyone listening to this, or if you know anyone who wants to get into journalism, who's young and just like want some advice, please write to me. And I would love to help you out. Okay. Question for Bhrikuti from Sudiksha. Thank you for the question. Have you ever felt unsafe reporting in Nepal, especially with the influence of our neighbors India and China? Do you think media autonomy in Nepal will change in the future? Good question.
Good question. I think because I'm not media reporting, first of all, safety ko kura. Yes, I have to always be quite careful. Field reporting or even Kathmandu reporting or that one. I remember when I reported like a high-profile case of domestic violence, I was so nervous that you remember that story, right? Bhrikuti Rai story.
Yes.
I was so nervous. I was like, ke huncha? Itisha was like, don't drink anything there. You get your own water. Like, those kind, because they are not journalists. In Nepal, we only ask very tough questions to people in public offices. We don't do the same thing to people who hold powerful positions in the private sector.
Yeah.
Because again, the way media business models work is we are very reliant on these big companies for ads, and we've not like done enough to diversify our revenue stream. So I think doing that kind of reporting shocked the person. And I was quite nervous about it, and especially when I'm reporting on stories. I did a lot of stories on like human trafficking, or reporting on river mining, things like that. So I always have to think about my physical safety also. So I make sure I'm always reporting with a team, with a photographer, making sure that I have a local contact there. I stay in I stay in the city center if I can. So those kind of things that I put things in place, and these are things that I had to do mostly on my own, because when I was going out reporting, I did not have all of this kind of institutional support from the places I was working on. So त्यो थियो. अर्को question के अरे, यो change कसरी हुन्छ भनेर.
Yes, with the influence of India and
हाम्रो त्यो already, it's like कतिजना थाहा नहोला तर it's already like the embassies, like the international presence, whether it's development partners or embassies, in some ways they've always tried to influence the way we report on international affairs that involves our neighbors. And it's up to the journalists how they take that in. त्यो छँदैछ हैन. अनि त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ अब भनौँ न, you just look at how our Nepal English language media, mostly than Nepali, just look at how critically do they report on Kashmir, for example, what's happening in Kashmir. They also like, it's like an unspoken, I don't know, like they don't even carry certain news. So there's this, I don't know, there's not been a study to prove, but you can just see by kind of. Most recently, Israelले गरिरहेको जुन छ नि हैन, गाजामा जे भइरहेछ तपाईले हेर्नुभयो भने, I mean, it was quite भनौँ न, taking reporters from Nepal, the Israeli embassy here, they pretty much took a group of journalists and said that this is what is happening, and they went on this trip, and nobody really disclosed that whether this was being supported by the Israeli embassy here. So as readers, and I think it's not up to the readers to make this connection, but I think it's up to the up to the media outlets to have a disclaimer.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going to a media press tour organized by the Israeli embassy in Kathmandu for Nepali journalists during the conflict, during the like bombing of Gaza. And also like for me, like oily current news is like the Israeli embassy getting all these huge columns to talk about what is happening and not being asked difficult questions also says a lot about how we treat our like these power centers.
And it's also like, like I think journalists have also internalized to, because we say, oh, Nepal needs to balance India and China, so we can't like, make our neighbors angry. But we're journalists, right? Like
Yeah.
our job is to make people angry.
Please,
Is to ask them difficult questions.
I've been called both. I've been called Indian agent also. I've been called Chinese agent. Please, मेरो बारेमा एउटा subreddit पनि छ, guys. I'm quite famous. Okay. मलाई दुईटै भनेको छ. When I report on India, it's like, oh my god, China. When I report on China, like, oh my god, India. Anyway, म एउटा मेरो wine gate kind of follow गर्नु होला Reddit-मा, please. So this is another question from this reader called Satish Guru. Ule bhancha. Satish Guru. Yeah.
Yes.
I love the recommendations that Pranay throws from time to time. Please continue that. My question is, how do your peers and former colleagues in larger media houses look at or think about initiatives like both of yours?
When I talk to them, they seem pretty happy about it.
Very bold, very bold,
Yeah.
but they do not always, like, I wish they would like give us like a huge shout out on social media, like, hey, follow Pranay, newsletter, follow.
I wish, yeah.
भन्दै भन्दैन भेट्दा पार्टीमा प्रणयजी गजब भेरी कङ्ग्रेचुलेसन प्रणयजी गुड Bhrikuti ji, bold, very bold बोजे बोजे share गरौ न यार, you got like 500,000 followers, yeah, just do that. गर्दैनन्. They only praise in private, unfortunately, guys. That's the reality. But I think like
So last time I met we met our former colleagues from Kalam Post, and one of my colleagues told me that I read and I know Pranay hates all Nepali media. I was like, no, I don't really. But he's like, no, I know you don't like anyone, and what you say, Kalam Post is the best of the worst. It's like, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Tito Satya, guys.
So yeah, I think reporters themselves, I think they're pretty happy.
Yeah.
Because they don't have they don't own Kantipur, they don't own any of the media. They're journalists, they're working people. They do their jobs and they don't really have that much of a stake in the company, or we're not a challenge to them. So, and because we worked with them and they know us, they're like, okay, they're doing it, good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Garnus.
तपाईँहरूलाई पनि सुरु गर्छ भने हामीसँग पनि कुरा गर्दा हुन्छ. I'm always happy to talk, because when we started out and we wanted to reach out to these people who already had established like independent outlets, they did not really have much to offer. Like for a small outlet like us, like के गर्न सकिन्छ, कसरी audience build गर्ने, उनीहरूको चाहिँ ठुलो नाम भएर चाहिँ audience followed them. तर हाम्रो त relatively अब दुईटा सबरेडिट भए पनि हाम्रो त खासै त्यस्तो छैन नि त. So त्यो चाहिँ एउटा छ, which and also that is, I think, with our culture of not reporting or acknowledging media go calm with each other. Okay, other question for Pranay is
another question for me.
Yeah, के गर्ने पाले पालो. I think we might be running slightly over time by 5 minutes. I think it's fine. Okay. How do you plan to sustain financially? Do you think AI is going for content creating jobs? What do you plan to do around threats you received during your unbiased reporting? A question by Bhaskar Joshi. 3 questions.
Okay, great. How do I plan to sustain my? That is a question I ask myself every single day. And I don't really have a good answer. But we're trying, right? Like, so because so many of you have supported me already, that's one step towards that sustainability. But obviously, eventually, I can't just rely on the generosity of my readers. Going to have to find other ways to make some money and support, so maybe events like these are one way to do that. Maybe merchandising is another way to do that. Maybe some targeted ads or something. Right now, I'm at a place where I'm willing to explore anything. is I've realized that from my experience at while I was at the record, is I've learned that we need to really be sustainable on our own. Like we can't rely on grants,
Yeah.
and we can't always expect other people to give us money to sustain ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to generate the income ourselves so that we can do the stuff that we want to do.
Yeah, and I think there are lots of good examples in India. I follow a lot of, like Quint Boyo, or Media Laundry, or News Minute. So they're doing these things, no? Like when you have a niche audience, India with a niche money as like I look at them more than Western outlets because there's a system in place. They're used to paying for services. Nepal ma छैन नि त त्यो. So like we have to really understand from the audience for like our readers, like how can they show support? So how do we create a sort of like we have to create like an ecosystem for us to sort of like sustain. So त्यो पनि छ. And about the AI question, do you think they're coming after all our kind of jobs?
I think so. So recently I met. I was traveling for these journalism, melas. And then one question that someone asked me was that, so they asked me, what do you do? And he was, I think he's a Filipino journalist, no, Indonesian journalist, kind of an old established Indonesian journalist. And he asked me, what do you do? So I told him I write this newsletter, which, summarizes what's happening. And there's a deep dive. And he's like, okay, but can't AI do that? Can't I get AI to tell me, okay, summarize the top 5 stories from Nepal? If AI can do it, why should I read you? So that was his question. And that made me think about, okay, yeah, what do I provide? What do I provide that AI cannot provide? And I guess my answer was, I have a voice. I have a voice that's unique to me. I doubt AI will be able to replicate my voice and my perspective of looking at things. It can give you a summary. It can maybe also you can ask it to write it from the perspective of Pranaya. And maybe one day it'll be able to do that. But it won't be able to understand how I think or how I'm going to interpret certain things. It's just not in my head. So it might be able to do some things, but I don't think it will ever get to a point where it's able to completely replace us as storytellers, right? As journalists. What do you think about that?
I don't think only too much. I'm always challenging Google Translate. Like, but it's coming, yeah. Like, my translation gigs are gone already. Like, local slang that they can't come. So I'm constantly challenging. That's what I do. Like whenever I write something like Nepali and then I translate. So I'm like that's how I test. You. So त्यो कुरा छँदैछ हैन म AI लाई जित्नु दिदिन I'm very competitive with AI. How do you plan to your threats को कुरा I think this is also like part of the threat only but beyond that reporting गर्दाखेरिको unbiased reporting गर्दा like can you
I haven't really had that many threats so far, right? अलिअलि यताउता तर त्यो गाली साली त आइरहन्छ it's just part of the job.
आफ्नो बाउआमालाई गाली आउन थाल्छ चाहिँ अलिक समस्या हुँदो रहेछ फोन आएर तपाईँको छोरीले के गर्दैछ भने चाहिँ टेन्सन हुन्छ आएको छ unfortunately. Anyway, so let's move on to the next question. I think we are running slightly.
So last question for Bhrikuti from Ishika. What do you think about RNB, which is routine of Nepal?
Ronb.
Especially the way youth rely on it as a primary source. What do you think is larger impact is on news culture, news reading culture?
I think routine of Nepal बन्द अब एक हिसाबले त्यो एउटा ग्यापमै नै आएको हो जस्तो लाग्छ because अहिले जस्तो I was talking when I talk to my younger cousins like for them Kantipur or Annapurna Post or like it's just like a name for them. Like they don't know the writers, they don't really care about those kind of things. Like for me, I'm always something that my first boss told me was as people in the media business, you should always be trying to reach out to younger people because in 10 years time, 15 years time, they are going to be someone with spending power and like that and that we are supposed to reach to younger audience. And I think Routine of Nepal बन्द एउटा चाहिँ के गरेछ भने एउटा समाज एउटा बानी बसाइदिएको छ जस्तो लाग्छ एउटा न्यूज अपडेट चाहिँ एउटा हुने and then a lot of other pages have followed which is great तर त्यो context नहुँदाखेरि चाहिँ and also when it was not clear and they were under a lot of criticism that उनीहरूको bias or like are they even like a news outlet like how do you identify like how do you distinguish itself and it's becoming increasingly unclear also भर्खर again, my favorite Taylor Lawrence that reported about how are meme pages now being news sources. Like I go to Saint Hoax page for like my Sunday recap, what happened, right? And that's completely fine because if they are there to curate what happened and have the credibility to do that, I wish RONB did more actually, rather than say, wow, good night, it's very nice, lovely, wow. It's nice, you know,
Amazing.
it's amazing. That's great because केही नभए नयाँ कुरा के आइरहेछ नि त मान्छेले ए मैले त्यहाँ हेरेँ मैले थाहा पाएँ अनि त्यो नयाँ कुरा थाहा पाउँदाखेरि अडियन्सलाई इट अलवेज फिल्स गुड to know something new, to know the feeling that, oh, I just learned something new. And I think RONB is able to do that. I wish they did more and were more transparent about their, you know, like they're promoting a movie also and then they're doing this also. So do we trust them as just any other page on the internet, which also happens to give you headlines? Or is it like a news outlet where we can demand some kind of accountability or transparency? But I like the fact that usko engagement body ko dekhera, then there are other kind of pages coming trying to do more in-depth stories, things like that. Because clearly young people don't read, young people don't want to know about these things. That is just you know, like legacy traditional media being lazy and not really being where the audience is. Because clearly, you know, like I talk to my really young, like 8, 9 year old, you know, like cousins and niece and everything. Like my little like 8 year old niece was like, do you know about SIAEL? Like, you know, last year. So clearly she's seeing that, you know, like whether they're playing games, that they're talking about these things.
Yes.
So where are they getting those things from? Like, you know, whatever. So I think it's really important to you know, like not dismiss these kind of pages and maybe as readers seek more accountability.
And we find a way to be in the space that they're in.
Yeah, I'm the coming after you, Aaron. Okay. TikTok पनि चल्न थालिसक्यो नेपालमा अब त कसले दिन्छ हामीलाई.
So I think that's about all of the time we have. Are there any more questions?
No?
So thank you for sitting with us for this 1 hour while we
On a Wednesday evening after work.
on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So thank you for you know, taking some time out of your busy schedules, and I'm sure there are some of you from strange time zones here. I'm pretty sure it's very early for some of you, maybe very late for some of you. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that you're here with us. This is our first time doing this, and I hope it didn't go too badly. I hope you enjoyed listening to us golf. And in the future, there'll be more. So please, you know, keep an eye out, follow us. We now have social media pages. So we have Twitter, we have Instagram. Please follow us. Yes. And LinkedIn, yes. LinkedIn.
Oh my God, LinkedIn now.
We're getting into the LinkedIn bros.
Oh my God.
We need to get on the LinkedIn bros.
So okay, I don't have to post on LinkedIn just in the Instagram post then I'll consider myself successful. The day I can stop posting on stupid LinkedIn. Anyway, LinkedIn is nice. It's one of those like nicer places where people don't get into gali because like work.
Very little gali there.
Yeah, but and I also plug corona, like, you know, like all where can they subscribe, become a paid subscriber?
They're already paid subscribers.
Oh, great. Make others also paid subscribers.
Yes, please ask.
Chat all the links.
Please ask your friends, family, people who you think might be interested to read, to subscribe. And you don't have to pay at first. Try reading. And if they like it, then sure, it would be great. And not just Kalam. Please subscribe to Bozwaze.
Yes,
please listen.
Yeah.
They have a great back catalog of episodes that you can listen to anytime.
We are working on new series, so please sunnu hola, hernu hola. We are so ready to make money on YouTube now, guys. So I'm YouTube on this with more regular programming. We're on a season break.
They're also on Spotify.
Oh yeah, Spotify everywhere.
Yes.
SoundCloud is too old now. SoundCloud. Wherever you get your podcast, we are there. We're coming with videos. I'm doing newsletter to keep updates on updates that we don't have yet. But thanks to Kalam, we've been getting a lot of new readers. bojubudget.substack.com, and if you like our work, patreon.com/bojubudget. So support for that. So thank you so much. I think thank you so much, Pranay. यस्तो ऐतिहासिक इभेन्टमा मलाई आज पहिलो गेस्ट बनाउनु भएकोमा एकदम I am very proud. My mother is very proud. I feel like a
Thank you,
वरिष्ठ
Bhrikuti.
पत्रकार today. I feel like a वरिष्ठ
You
पत्रकार.
are a barista mother.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
And now we're going to say goodbye.
Bye.